Hi everyone, welcome back. This week we are continuing with Deuteronomy chapter 8. All right. Be careful to observe all the commandments I enjoin on you today reminder, this is still Moses talking. That I enjoin on you today, that you may live and increase and may enter in and possess the land which the Lord promised on oath to your fathers. Remember how for 40 years now the Lord your God has directed all your journeying in the desert, so as to test you by affliction and find out whether or not it was your intention to keep his commandments. He therefore let you be afflicted with hunger and then fed you with manna, a food unknown to you and your fathers, in order to show you that not by bread alone does a man live, but by every word that comes forth from the mouth of the Lord. The clothing did not fall from you in tatters, nor did your feet swell these 40 years. So you must realize that the Lord your God disciplines you even as a man disciplines his son. Therefore, keep the commandments of the Lord your God by walking in his ways and fearing him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good country, a land with streams and water, with springs and fountains welling up in the hills and valleys, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, of olive trees and of honey, a land where you can eat bread without stint and where will lack nothing, a land whose stones contain iron and in whose hills you can mine copper. But when you have eaten your fill, you must bless the Lord your God for the good country he has given you. Be careful not to forget the Lord your God by neglecting his commandments and decrees and statutes which I enjoin on you today, lest when you have eaten your fill and have built fine houses and lived in them, and have increased your herds and flocks, your silver and gold, and all your property, you then become haughty of heart and unmindful of the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery, who guided you through the vast and terrible desert with its seraph serpents and scorpions, its parched and waterless ground, who brought forth water for you from the flinty rock and fed you in the desert with manna, a food unknown to your fathers, that he might afflict you and test you, but also make you prosperous in the end. Otherwise you might say to yourselves, it is my own power and strength of my own hand that has obtained for me this wealth. Remember then, it is the Lord your God who gives you the power to acquire wealth by fulfilling, as he has now done, the covenant which he swore to your fathers. But if you forget the Lord your God and follow other gods, serving and worshiping them, I forewarn you this day that you will perish utterly. Like the nations which the Lord destroys before you, so shall you too perish for not heeding the voice of the Lord your God. I want to go back really quickly to a verse here, verse 5, where it said, so you must realize that the Lord your God disciplines you even as a man disciplines his son. He was talking about how they just wandered the desert for 40 years, and yet their clothing hasn't fallen in tatters off of them. Their feet, they still have shoes that stay on their feet. So wandering the desert for 40 years, delaying entering the promised land, that was a punishment. But God disciplines you even as a man disciplines his own son. It's not being done out of malintent. It's teaching a lesson and teaching them what they needed to do, but God didn't have them unable to survive it. It was done with love, not just out of vindictiveness or anything like that. Like when a parent disciplines a child, it's not just because they're not doing it just to be mean. They're doing it to teach a lesson, to help the child be safe or to make a better choice in the future. Okay, chapter 9. Hear, O Israel, you are now about to cross the Jordan and enter in and dispossess nations greater and stronger than yourselves, having large cities fortified to the sky, the Anakim, a people great and tall. You know of them and have heard it said of them, who can stand up against the Anakim? Understand then today that it is the Lord your God who will cross over before you as a consuming fire. He it is who will reduce them to nothing and subdue them before you, so that you can drive them out and destroy them quickly, as the Lord promised you. After the Lord your God has thrust them out of your way, do not say to yourselves, it is because of my merits that the Lord has brought me to possess this land, for it is really because of the wickedness of the nations that the Lord is driving them out before you. No, it is not because of your merits or the integrity of your heart that you are going to take possession of their land, But the Lord your God is driving these nations out before you on account of their wickedness, and in order to keep the promise which he made an oath to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand this, therefore, it is not because of your merits that the Lord your God is giving you this good land to possess, for you are a stiff-necked people. In other words, don't boast. Don't be prideful that you are getting this land. Yeah. Bear in mind and do not forget how you angered the Lord your God in the desert. From the day you left the land of Egypt until you arrived in this place, you have been rebellious toward the Lord. At Horeb, you so provoked the Lord that he was angry enough to destroy you. When I had gone up the mountain to receive the stone tablets of the covenant which the Lord made with you. Meanwhile, I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights without eating or drinking, till the Lord gave me the 2 tablets of stone inscribed by God's own finger, with a copy of all the words that the Lord spoke to you on the mountain from the midst of the fire on the day of the assembly. Then at the end of the 40 days and 40 nights, when the Lord had given me the 2 stone tablets of the covenant, he said to me, Go down from here now, quickly, for your people, whom you have brought out of Egypt, have become depraved. They have already turned aside from the way I pointed out to them, and have made for themselves a molten idol, the golden calf. I have seen how stiff-necked this people is, the Lord said to me. Let me be, that I may destroy them and blot out their name from under the heavens. I will then make of you a nation mightier and greater than they. When I had come down again from the blazing fiery mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant in both my hands, I saw how you had sinned against the Lord your God. You had already turned aside from the way which the Lord had pointed out to you by making for yourselves a molten calf. Raising the 2 tablets with both hands, I threw them from me and broke them before your eyes. Then, as before, I lay prostrate, face down, before the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights without eating or drinking, because of all the sin you had committed in the sight of the Lord and the evil you had done to provoke him. For I dreaded the fierce anger of the Lord against you. His wrath would destroy you. Yet once again the Lord listened to me. With Aaron, too, the Lord was deeply angry, and would have killed him had I not prayed for him also at that time. Then, taking the calf, the sinful object you had made, and fusing it with fire, I ground it down to powder as fine as dust, which I threw into the wadi that went down to the mountainside. At Taberna, at Massa, and at Kibroth Hadavah, likewise, you provoked the Lord to anger, and when he sent you up from Kadesh Barnea to take possession of the land he was giving you, you rebelled against this command of the Lord your God, and would not trust or obey him. Ever since I have known you, you have been rebels against the Lord. Those 40 days then and 40 nights I lay prostrate before the Lord, because he had threatened to destroy you. This was my prayer to him, O Lord God. Destroy not your people, the heritage which your majesty has ransomed and brought out of Egypt with your strong hand. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look not upon the stubbornness of this people, nor upon their wickedness and sin, lest the people from whose land you have brought us say, the Lord was not able to bring them into the land he promised them, or, out of hatred for them, he brought them out to slay them in the desert. They are, after all, your people and your heritage, whom you have brought out by your great power and with your outstretched arm. Chapter 10. At that time the Lord said to me, Cut 2 tablets of stone like the former, then come up the mountain to me. Also make an ark of wood. I will write upon the tablets the commandments that were on the former tablets that you broke, and you shall place them in the ark. So I made an ark of acacia wood, and cut 2 tablets of stone like the former, and went up the mountain carrying the 2 tablets. The Lord then wrote on them, as he had written before, the 10 commandments which he spoke to you on the mountain from the midst of the fire the day of the assembly. After the Lord had given them to me, I turned and came down the mountain, and placed the tablets in the ark I had made. There they have remained, in keeping with the command the Lord gave me. The Israelites set out from Beeroth, Bene Jaakan, for Mosera, where Aaron died and was buried, his son Eleazar succeeding him in the priestly office. From there they set out for Gudgodah, and from Gudgodah for Jothbahah, a region in which there is water in the wadis. At that time the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the covenant of the Lord, to be in attendance before the Lord, and minister to him, and to give blessings in his name, as they have done to this day. For this reason Levi has no share in my heritage with his brothers, has no share in the heritage with his brothers. And the Lord himself is his heritage, as the Lord your God has told him. After I had spent these other 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain, and the Lord had once again heard me and decided not to destroy you, he said to me, Go now and set out at the head of your people, that they may enter and occupy the land which I swore to their fathers I would give them. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you but to fear the Lord your God, and follow his ways exactly, to love and to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, to keep the commandments and statutes of the Lord which I enjoin on you today for your own good? Think. The heavens, even the highest heavens, belong to the Lord your God, as well as the earth and everything on it. Yet in his love for your fathers, the Lord was so attached to them as to choose you, their descendants, in preference to all other peoples, as indeed he has now done. Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and be no longer stiff-necked. For the Lord your God is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who has no favorites, accepts no bribes, who executes justice for the orphan and the widow, and befriends the alien, feeding and clothing him. So you too must befriend the alien, for you were once aliens yourselves in the land of Egypt. The Lord your God shall you fear, and him shall you serve. Hold fast to him and swear by his name. He is your glory, he, your God, who has done for you those great and terrible things which your own eyes have seen. Your ancestors went down to Egypt 70 strong, and now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. In chapter 11. Love the Lord your God, therefore, and always heed his charge, his statutes, decrees, and commandments. It is not your children who have not known it from experience, but you yourselves who must now understand the discipline of the Lord your God, his majesty, his strong hand, and his outstretched arm, the signs and deeds he wrought among the Egyptians, on Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and on all his land. What he did to the Egyptian army and to their horses and chariots, engulfing them in the water of the Red Sea as they pursued you, and bringing ruin upon them even to this day. What he did for you in the desert until you arrived in this place, and what he did to the Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, when the ground opened its mouth and swallowed them up out of the midst of Israel, with their families and tents, and every living thing that belonged to them. With your own eyes you have seen all of these great deeds that the Lord has done. Keep all the commandments then, which I enjoin on you today, that you may be strong enough to enter in and take possession of the land into which you are crossing, and that you may have long life in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers he would give them and to their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. For the land which you are to enter and occupy is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come, where you would sow your seed and then water it by hand, as in a vegetable garden. No, the land into which you are crossing for conquest is a land of hills and valleys that drinks it in rain from the heavens, a land which the Lord your God looks after. His eyes are upon it continually from the beginning of the year to the end. If, then, you truly heed my commandments which I enjoin on you today, loving and serving the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, I will give the seasonal rain to your land, the early rain and the late rain, that you may have your grain, wine, and oil to gather in. And I will bring forth grass in your fields for your animals, thus you may eat your fill. But be careful lest your heart be so lured away that you serve other gods and worship them. For then the wrath of the Lord will flare up against you, and he will close up the heavens, so that no rain will fall, and the soil will not yield its crops. And you will soon perish from the good land he is giving you. Therefore take these words of mine into your heart and soul. Bind them at your wrist as a sign, and let them be a pendant on your forehead. Teach them to your children, speaking of them at home and abroad, whether you are busy or at rest, and write them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates, so that as long as the heavens are above the earth, and you and your children may live on in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers he would give them. For if you are careful to observe all the commandments I enjoin on you, loving the Lord your God, and following his ways exactly, and holding fast to him, The Lord will drive all these nations out of your way, and you will dispossess nations greater and mightier than yourselves. Every place where you set foot shall be yours, from the deserts and from the desert and from Lebanon, from the Euphrates River to the western sea, shall be your territory. None shall stand up against you. The Lord your God will spread the fear and dread of you through the land where you set foot, as he promised you. I set before you here this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing for obeying the commandments of the Lord your God, which I enjoin on you today. A curse if you do not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside from the way I ordain for you today to follow other gods, whom you have not known. When the Lord your God brings you into the land which you are to enter and occupy, then you shall pronounce the blessing on Mount Gerizim, the curse on Mount Ebal. Are they not beyond the Jordan on the other side of the western road, in the country of the Canaanites who live in the Arabah opposite the Gilgal beside the terebinth of Moreh? For you are about to cross the Jordan to enter and occupy the land which the Lord your God is giving you. When, therefore, you take possession of it and settle there, be careful to observe all the statutes and decrees that I set before you today. Again, just a reminder, our God is a loving God. He's a merciful God, but he's a just God. It's kind of the theme of the Old Testament. So anyways, that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. Let us bow our heads and say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.